Hey guys, it's Skybird, and before I get into the topic of the video, which is 3D printed Bionicle parts, you're going to see some here in just about 5-10 seconds. I am feeling a little bit better today, so I have been off for the past couple of days, just being ill. We'll talk about that here maybe towards the end. Maybe. I don't know. Suffice to say, you guys are here for the 3D prints, so let's get into that. I printed 2 Bionicle pieces as my first test, and I am so pleased. Right now, right off the bat, I am going to say this is a great decision. So the 3D printer arrived. First of all, let me spoil one of the pieces I printed first, since I just promised that I'd show it to you. The Batera helmet, that's just one. That's the smaller of the 2. And, all right. So the 3D printer arrived Friday when I was very sick, and I literally had to wait in the living room, which was fine because I could not sleep anyway. I could rest, but I could not actually get to sleep. And so I waited out there because it was being delivered by FedEx, and FedEx is notorious for just throwing things around, but thankfully they handled it well. So good on them. But yeah, I went out to get it, and it's, 20 pounds or whatever, but it felt like about 100. Being sick is not fun. With that said, though, brought it inside, and I just literally just set it in the living room and used it as a table because I can't open that. I was dead. I was dead. With that said, though, yesterday I was feeling quite a bit better. At the very least, I could get up, I could move around. Still a horrible headache, a little nauseous, but nowhere near what I was the day before. And for what it's worth, I think I had food poisoning. That's the most likely culprit. But again, that's no big deal here. With all that said, though, I ran a test print first, just an exposure print to see what I'd like. And I was so satisfied with the result, I didn't change any settings. I just went straight into printing off 2 Bionicle pieces and threw it in there. Now, the printer that I got is the Anycubic Photon Mono M5S, which is a crazy long name. It's too long, but suffice to say, the reason I got it was kind of twofold. 3, really. Anycubic has really good customer support, at least from what I've heard, which is fantastic. Anytime you buy something, especially something expensive from a company, you really want them to be there when you need assistance. It comes with a warranty, it comes with technical support, so that's all cool stuff. I did buy it refurbished, but it's refurbished through them. So they do the work, which I would trust the company to do it best. And I bought it for 20% off for President's Day. So what was new, like a $400 printer, I got for $280 something, which is mind blowing to think about. Which is obviously still an investment, but suffice to say, I did that exposure print. I cured those pieces, threw them outside just to kind of let them air out, and I just went straight into printing these next 2 pieces. And so I'll go ahead and show you those first. This is the Batera helmet. If you're not familiar with this, by the way, this is a helmet that we were very likely going to get from Bionicle. I say that because A, it was featured in one of the comics on the Batera itself, but also a model of this is used on the Hero Factory Spida Demon prototype set. It has just little wings added onto the back end of it, but that tells me that LEGO actually had modeled this piece, which, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate we did not see it. Even reused in Hero Factory, this would have made an excellent helmet, so I'm surprised it didn't show up there, but hey, whatever. With that said, though, I believe this is modeled by Rothanak, but don't quote me on that. I don't want to misattribute it. It's just that these are just files I had on my computer already. I tend to rename them, and so I don't think I saved who it was modeled by, but I'm pretty positive that's who this was from. That said, it is a lovely piece, and interestingly, something I hadn't seen before is they printed it with sort of like a funnel-shaped axle. As you can see, it gets thinner towards the tip, and I really like that, actually, because it means that no matter what, it's going to fit, but also because of the nature of the resin and how it's printed and stuff, it has really good grip too. In fact, it's so good that I worry about pushing it down too far that I may never be able to get it off this head. Still though, it's really impressive, and it does fit really well. I could absolutely push it in there further, as mentioned. It's an incredible piece, and honestly, I would have loved to have seen it in Bionicle specifically. I know that it's a white helmet specifically. It's for an ice character. I don't really care for ice specifically, but for an earth character, this would have looked fantastic personally. So maybe I'll even use it for the Bar Magnet expansion project. I have no idea. But I guess technically I could make a Batera-esque character. I don't know. We'll see. That's all still up in the air right now. With that said, though, the second piece that I printed, much bigger, by the way, and quite a bit heavier, too. I'm actually surprised by the weight of this piece, but it is solid resin, so it makes sense. And without further ado, it is this one right here, the Vizon Olmec, modeled by Galva, and this is such an incredible piece. And as you can see, it is on a Paraka head right now. Now, I will say, axle holes here, really tight. Good luck me getting that axle out of there, but I'm trying to kind of like fidget it around in there a little bit to make sure it kind of moves around and opens that axle up a little bit more, but it fits so well here. And what's really cool too is that they actually modeled in kind of like a Mata mask connection there, so you can even use it with like a Mata head or even, I guess, a Metru head there as well, but it's not sticking out so far as to be an axle that runs into the eye stalk, and that's really cool. What I'd love to see, although this isn't really like flexible, is like you could put a stud in there and push down on the head, and then that way the eyes would glow. That'd be really neat, but that's probably something you could do with actual like plastic or polypropylene, whatever the case. Still, this is an incredible piece, and you can very clearly tell that it is Vizon on the front, and I love the fact that it goes from being that very faithful rendition of Vizon's mask here to then becoming a more stylized version of the Olmec rather than sticking to what very easily could have been original. This is a masterclass in modeling, and as we know, both of these modelers are very prevalent in the Bionicle community itself. So I did want to go ahead and shout them out. Like I said, hopefully I got the attributions right here. You should definitely go check them out, even like supporting them in whatever way you can. But really, they do so much stuff for free that it's honestly astounding. I don't know how they do it other than just out of pure passion, because when I think about, the part that I've modeled, and I know I don't have the workflow of these people, I have much less experience with things like Blender. It could take me several hours to model a piece. So to see something like this, I have to think about the amount of time that's put into something like this. To not get paid for that is like, it's crazy, but it's so generous at the same time, and you would not be upset with these parts themselves. So talking about the 3D printer, would I recommend it? A couple of things. First of all, if you have the money to actually invest in a 3D printer, resin printer specifically, because that's what I can speak to, I would say yes. Now, I've only had it in use for technically one day. I pulled these this morning, but I do want to mention that I did forget to turn off one setting. So the printer I got, one of the reasons I got it was because it is a high-speed printer, meaning technically it could have printed, because these were both printed at the same time, both of these pieces in a little under 40 minutes, which is insane. It's mind-blowing to think of how this comes from a bottle of liquid as thin as milk, like to suddenly become a solid mass. Now, obviously, there's more time spent in it. You have to wash, you have to cure it, stuff like that, sure. But the fact that you can do that quickly is mind-blowing. The problem is I forgot to turn off a setting that was turned on by default, which is exposure compensation, something along those lines, which greatly increases the amount of time that it takes to print. It didn't matter for me because I was going to sleep no matter what, so 30 minutes, 7 hours, whatever. But that ended up being what it was. No big deal. I'm not going to complain about it. The prints themselves, they speak for themselves, and I can't really top that. The one thing I wanted to mention that kind of held me off, at least for a bit, because I did a lot of research on this, was sort of analysis paralysis. We've all run into it, right? And I watched so many videos talking about this printer specifically and resin printing in general, and how they would talk about, oh, this printer's not good for this thing, or this one's not good for, and what a lot of people sort of griped with this printer was that because it's a high-speed printer, it uses a film on the bottom that's kind of a frosted texture to it, and that's because it's a stretchier material, because it has to be able to like compensate for the fact that this has to go fast, right? I'm not going to get into the details of that. I wouldn't be the best person to explain it anyway, but suffice to say, I expected good, not great, and I got superb. I did those exposure prints first, thinking, okay, I'll dial in the settings from here. And when I pulled that exposure print out, the 8 prints that were there, I was just like, no, we're just going to go for it. Like, they were all good. Sure, there were differences between them. There were little things that I could have pluck that and change. But at the end of the day, everything came out exactly how I needed it. None of the details were big enough to matter for something like a Bionicle piece, which is crazy to think about. But it was so true. And I think the thing that I was worried about the most was that I was gonna print something and the resolution was gonna be off and I would notice these soft details or something. And I don't. I just don't. This is coming from someone who has no experience with 3D printing, no experience with slicers at all, which I'm using Lychee and the slicer that came with my printer. And for me to be able to just throw things in and print them is incredible. You know, yeah, I did have to go in and support them, which was easy enough to do on Lychee as well. I did add in some manual supports too. I don't even think that was necessary, honestly. In fact, if I did it again, I probably would just take those supports out. But yeah, it came. I'm blown away here, guys. So yeah, would I recommend it? Absolutely. If it's something you can afford. And again, make sure, just like with resin casting, this is resin. It is toxic material. Make sure your room has airflow. It's stinky stuff. You know, make sure you have proper ventilation. They say it's best to do it at certain temperatures too. I'm honestly not even measuring the temperature, and these are coming out just fine. Is that going to matter in the future? Probably. I'm sure I'll run into a problem at some point, but right now it's just working, and that's good enough for me. With all that being said, that's pretty much it for this video. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And I wanted to also say, if you have suggestions for Bionicle pieces that you think I should print, or if you have links to pieces that you'd like to see printed, it's not to guarantee that I can do them all, of course, but I will try to focus a video on that. Maybe your suggestions video, something along those lines. Let me know either in the comments, or if you do want to share a link, check out the Discord. It is free. It is in the description. We're near 500 members right now. It's a very chill, laid back place to just kind of exist. And there's a lot of really cool stuff there, as well as all of my Rahi that I've built, and the parts variant form, which is a fun thing that we've been going through the past few days. Also, you can check out Instagram in the description as well. It's just past 2,800 subscribers there, so our followers there. A few milestones are hitting right now, so I'm getting them all confused. And lastly, you can check out the Patreon if you want to support the channel and get some perks. And thank you to everybody who is supporting. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Hopefully I recover soon.